On this episode of AV Week, we look back at ISE 2018 and the number of North Americans who attended the show and what that means for the global market. Also talking about laser projection and how long lamp-based projectors have. And finally, creating exceptional experiences with drones. All that and more. Next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 338, recorded Friday, February 16th, 2018. Lip syncing AV.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Middle Atlantic, what great systems are built on, and by Christie Digital.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to talk about the news and information of the week, first and foremost, his name is Brad Grimes, and he works for a small organization called AVWeek. How are you, sir?
I'm very good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Also with us, our token integrator, his name is Jeremy Caldera, and he is from IAS. How are you, sir?
I am excellent, my friend.
Jeremy and Brad and I both got to hang out at ISE last week. We'll talk about that. Last but not least, he didn't go to ISE this year, but he has been in the past. His name is Mr. Chris Netto, and he works for Barco. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you gentlemen doing today?
Good. Barco had the golden click share. You could win actual gold at ISE. So, all right. So we've mentioned ISE a couple times. Jeremy, I want to start with you because this was your first time over there, and that's actually kind of what I want to get into. The story we're using is from AV Network, and the story is actually kind of interesting. Rob Lane wrote it, analyzing the North American participation at ISE. Integrated Systems Europe is a European AV show. By some estimates, there was as many as 20% of the participants that went to ISE, and just for clarification, there was almost 81,000 people at that show last week. 20% of those, roughly, were from North America. So, Jeremy, really quickly, from a standpoint of the global AV market and the standpoint of why you went, where does ISE and that North American participation put us as a global AV industry?
I think the entire event was kind of mind-blowing to me just because of the sheer size of it. I think once you factor in all of the different companies that are there, with this being a joint venture with CEDIA and whatnot, I understand why it's larger. And just for me going there, I just wanted to experience and see what else was out there, because I've heard the rumors that there's companies that show at ISE that don't show at Infocom, right? Some of that may have to be with the fact that you can't get some of this equipment in the United States. I don't know. I did actually find that with some of the vendors that I was actually talking to. But it was just very interesting just getting a different perspective on the show. The show has a totally different feel and a totally different vibe than Infocom does. And I really am a fan. I think I'm going to want to try and find a reason to go every year now. For me, obviously it's not just a vacation. It's the only time I get to see the trade show floor, really, because at Infocom, I'm so busy doing other stuff that I very rarely get time with the vendors and whatnot. Now, the one interesting part about ISE that differs from I think Infocom is I felt like there was less product, and I don't know if that's a result of just the way the show happens. Like in each manufacturer's booth, right? Whether it be AMX, Crestron, whoever, the booth sizes are maybe not as big as Infocom, and there's gear there, but it's like the latest gear, which is good. It's not like every single thing under the sun, right?
Yeah.
I felt that a couple of the booths that I was in, like 25% of the booth was product, and the other 75% of the booth was like meeting space, which was really interesting in a couple of the booths. Now, that's not like that for all of them, but I think it just had an overall different vibe, and it was really a great experience. I think, meeting a lot of people that either don't come into the Infocom show or just from all the different regions of the world that I don't normally get to meet when I'm in, when I'm in Vegas or Orlando. And it goes to speak volumes that this really is a global industry, and this is the biggest show, and I see completely why now after attending.
All right. Mr. Noto, you actually hung out with me 3 years ago at our first go at ISE. What does the numbers say about, the AV market globally, as well as what it means that so many North Americans are going over there?
You mean attendance-wise, correct?
Attendance-wise, yes.
Yeah. All right. So when we went, I think they broke 60,000 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
You do the math, man. That's a massive
Well,
increase.
well, year over year. I mean, last year they had 73,000.
Yeah.
And so the growth between 2017 and 2018 was 10%.
That's substantial. Well, I mean, I think that the appeal to ISE is multi-layered. It's not just, you can't pinpoint on just one thing that makes ISE attractive to the people. For one, I think what part of the allure to ISE is that you have a combination of both shows, the commercial and the residential side, which as much as commercial guys are going to tell you that no, it's not what we do, and we're not into that, and I don't want to sell you a remote, blah, blah, blah. It's a lie, because what happens is on the residential side, we're being influenced by that side nowadays. So if you want to get a peek at what's happening on the commercial side, you sort of need to take a look at what's happening. For us to do that here, we have to go to a separate show and seat you. There you have it under the same hall, not necessarily in the same space, and it may be a couple kilometers away in a different hall. But because when I heard you guys are wearing out soles of your shoes running from back from one side to the other, it was that way 3 years ago. Nothing's changed. But
no, something's changed. We've got 3 extra halls from 3 years ago.
So you bring extra soles. That's
exactly
great. Or extra shoes. You're like a horse. You're getting stamped before you move on. But anyway, regardless of that, you have the residential side. You have commercial meshing together. So yes, you do have the opportunity if you're working in a commercial environment where somebody asks you for something a little bit more special or unique, a speaker that's not necessarily just black or white. You need something that's maybe more architectural. You may find that there. Whereas obviously here it's more, when we're doing just an Infocom show, that it's more, straightforward commercial, and it is what it is. There's also the fact that it is in Europe, and within Europe, you can travel freely within those countries. If you have that passport, you can, not to get all political on you because I hate talking politics, but if you are in Amsterdam and you are in Spain, you can easily go from Spain to Amsterdam with no problem. Yeah. That may also lend to the fact that they have a huge contingency coming just from their own continent.
Yeah. Brad, Avixa is half owner of ISE, but this is not the only show that you guys do outside of North America. I want to say that you have between 10 and 12 other shows that you do outside of the U.S. Mm-hmm. Where does this put us? And I'm not just talking about ISE here, but you guys every year do a global health of the market, and you break it down by region. But the success of this show and the success of your other shows, what is this? How does this speak to the health of the industry?
Well, clearly the industry is very healthy, and it's attracting a lot of eyeballs. And in both the ISE show and our Infocom show here in the United States and elsewhere around the world, we are seeing more and more people who buy audiovisual solutions. And they were all traditionally channel shows for a long time. And we're seeing more and more people who are interested in procuring the solutions and the services of the people exhibiting there, showing up at these shows, which means audiovisual solutions are on lots of enterprise customers and residential customers in the case of ISE on their radar. So it's a higher profile thing. It's exciting. It's obviously something that starts in homes and everywhere else that you see amazing video in outdoor LED displays. You see all this stuff around, and so it's front of mind for a lot of people, and a lot of enterprise buyers are understanding that it's a strategic asset for a lot of what they do. So it's attracting a lot of attention. So no wonder the shows are growing, and the portfolio is it's almost like one big show all year long. I mean, you can't. Our actual attendee overlap between, say, the June show, the June Infocom show, and ISE is only about 6%. So you can go to ISE.
Okay.
Yeah, which isn't to say that the number is about 20% coming from North America. And I can't confirm or deny that number is the case. I haven't seen all those numbers yet. I'm just saying that the attendees at the shows, the overlap isn't is a few thousand people. And the overlap in exhibitors is, there are 600 exhibitors at the June show, the June Infocom show that are not at ISE. So it's great that people are able to, when they can, get to both shows, because it is almost like a continuous one big show. You can see stuff in Amsterdam that you won't see in Las Vegas or Orlando, and vice versa. And you go around the world, and obviously every market's different, but this is clearly a global market, and that's why a lot of integrators and manufacturers are adjusting and having presences around the world. And it's all good news. I mean, this is a great time to be in this industry.
Yeah, and actually, to Jeremy's point earlier, that was one of the most interesting things that I found my first time at ISE, was discovering those folks that aren't showing it at the North American show simply because that they don't have a presence here, right? They're fine being where they are. They're fine in the European market or in the African market or wherever they live. They're okay with being, that this is our space. We know it, we like it, and we can serve it well. But as folks like Jeremy are expanding beyond their North American borders and doing projects, outside of the U.S., they need to discover some of those folks that, maybe, their projector screen of choice here in the States, can't get to wherever their next job is. So they need to have a plan B and a plan C.
Well, that's a great function of these trade shows in general. I mean, this is the greatest place to meet up with as many suppliers and providers as you can in one place, because with new products and solutions coming from companies all over the world, it's good to have relationships. Obviously, you don't want to go buy the latest, front, display LED solution from a new vendor unless you really meet them and you understand them. That's just one of the technologies that's blowing up right now, and you really have to have relationships. You want to have vendors you can trust.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, our next story is coming to us from Installation International. Sony released 5 new laser projectors last week, and actually their highest brightness installed laser projector last week. Chris, I want to start with you on this. We have been talking about laser projection, good Lord, I'm going to say for at least 6-7 years now. When I was a former tech manager, it was interesting, at least on the outset, because there are no lamps involved with laser projection. In other words, I don't have to get up on a ladder. I don't have any consumables. My total cost of ownership, to overuse a buzz phrase, was relatively low, or at least, pretty well set when I purchased the projector. As that market has evolved and matured, now folks are getting more and more into it. How long before there are no more consumable lamp projectors at Infocom or ISE?
Wow, that's a tough question, because you are asking, well, let's play business then. There will be no more lamps once it becomes affordable, and that everybody and every manufacturer is doing laser solely. That's what it's going to come down to, just that. It's lamps are inexpensive right now in that sense that you could throw it away. It's not as as expensive to produce laser.
I was going to say, hang over, because some lamps, and again, this is going back, it's been 5 or 6 years since I've been a tech manager. There were some lamps that we were paying between $600 and $1,200 a piece. And that's in the Midwest, where, total cost of stuff is pretty well low. They're not exactly inexpensive either.
Yeah. No. Let's clarify that. Inexpensive meaning the projector itself with a lamp base is going to be less than the laser. Let's make that clear. Once that laser projection becomes affordable to every XYZ manufacturer to put that out there and provide a solution, listen, laser was the answer to direct view TVs in conference rooms, right? As of right now, projectors are still needed in conference rooms where you require a certain size screen. Right now, that is the in-between That's the delta between a regular TV and its sizes that are capped and going into something custom like which you would create with an LED wall, right? The projectors live in that space, right? And then the projectors get into the bigger spaces once you start looking at the cost of putting out a 20-foot screen, LED versus projection.
Yeah.
So that is the ultimate factor deciding anything with lasers is going to be where those deltas lie. And that's just my opinion. So
yeah, that's why I have you on.
Thank you.
Brad, the reason I like having Brad on, and not just because he works for AVIXA, but Brad was a longtime journalist, and so he's seen different evolutions over the years. Same kind of question, though. I mean, you've seen different technologies come and go when it comes to display technologies. What is your sense, or is there ever going to be a time when there is no lamps, or is it just going to be one of those things that if you want a lamp, it's over here and it's useful for certain functions, but by and large, it's a technology that's not consumable?
I mean, I don't think they're going to go away in the near future. They'll go away when people stop buying them. I mean, in different markets around the world or at different places in their evolution. We've come out with a lot of market research lately with help from IHS Market, and the numbers show that the projection market is just is starting to lose ground to direct view displays in a lot of applications. Lasers are actually one of the bright spots where it is growing, because there are a lot of the upsides that Chris alluded to, but yeah, they are a little bit expensive. I mean, there are markets around the world where the old-fashioned projectors are still being bought and put into classrooms in China and some other places where they just cost is something that they think about, and they're still outfitting a bunch of rooms and a lot of rooms, because education facilities are growing in certain parts of the market. So when people stop buying them, that technology will go by the wayside. But for right now, I don't foresee them totally zeroing out anytime. That said, projections slowly in a slower decline. Lasers a bright spot. It's actually growing.
All right.
Tim, it's funny that Brad actually mentioned the people still buying them. One of our friends actually, when we were talking about VGA going away from things, the answer that they said is, when and this is when I was a tech manager, he goes, when you guys stop buying them, it will go away. Right now, there's still a need for the lamp projectors because they're cost effective for a lot of places. Yep. As laser becomes cheaper, for that to start pushing those price ranges, there's going to be that. There's not going to be there's not going to be a fade away. It's going to be, it's reached that point. Boom, here we go. The tech, like you as a former tech manager within a university, yes, you wanted lasers. Yes, you wanted that. The brightness wasn't there. As soon as the brightness got there and the prices started moving around, then you started your shift. You were waiting. There was your threshold, right? So that's where I think, as long as there's still a need, like the stupid VGA connection, there will still be there. But one day that thing is going to drop and boom, it's going to then completely change.
There's another interesting way to look at this, which is I've seen this and I've talked to some manufacturers of flat panel displays. And I'm kind of thinking about the same approach, right? When the tooling of the manufacturing facilities, right, becomes more cost effective to just produce lasers, that's when we're going to see them just dropping off the lamp-based stuff. And that could drive that shift and that change too, because right now we're starting to see that fundamental shift with 4K and 1080p displays, right? Where I'm hearing that the tooling of the building a 4K display for a manufacturer is becoming cheaper than building a 1080p display, right? So if we're going to see that same shift happen from the manufacturing side, that could drive it as well.
Well, and what you also might see, Jeremy, for a little bit is to both Brad and Chris's point, there might be a small window of time where they'll still tool for a projector, for a lamp, but they're going to cost more than a laser, right? And if you've got, I don't know, we used to stockpile lamps, mainly because as an education house, you'd get a big pile of money at the beginning of the fiscal year, and you're like, okay, well, this is what I need, and so we would stockpile, and during the year, if your projector completely went out and you still had a stockpile of lamps, you bought the same projector. So,
well, as long as the guys aren't still around that are preaching we need to have lamp-based because they look better, kind of like the guys who say we need to have vinyl instead of CD, or the guys that say we need to have analog boards instead of digital.
The plasma guys are still around. Those are the video files.
I'm a plasma guy.
They see?
I'm still a plasma guy, which is why I love OLED.
OLED, I'm a plasma guy. So.
Yep, there you go.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we're all old.
So vintage.
Let's get this last one here. We're in the middle. We're recording this on Friday the 16th of February, in the middle of the Winter Olympics. If you watch the opening ceremonies, you saw some incredible technology using drones. And yes, we're going to talk about drones and AV. And Chris, don't yell at me yet. That technology was as good of an example of why drones belong in the audiovisual industry. It's live staging at events, right? It was some incredible visuals. The drones themselves had different colors. They created different shapes. There was a shape of a snowboarder and a flying dove or a flying bird of some sort. However, here's the catch. That was pre-recorded. If you watched the opening ceremonies live, that was actually recorded a week prior, because there was a technical glitch and they had to ground the entire drone army. Brad, I'm going to start with you on this. Well, I try to do it in order, and I haven't started with you yet.
I didn't watch the broadcast live, but was there a disclaimer that said that? I saw the release after. But.
Yeah, I saw it afterwards. I didn't see a disclaimer afterwards. So I was in Amsterdam. So, Brad, is that little hiccup, does that little glitch, does that lend more credence to the fact that, yes, we this belongs, but we need to be careful? Or is it a knock against drones being in the AV industry?
Well, unless they totally faked it. I mean, it
wasn't faked. They did it. They really did it.
I'm saying, and I'm working my way up to it. They didn't, right?
Yeah.
So whether they recorded it a week before, or that the disclaimer and the fact that it was windy the actual night of it, and you couldn't send up a bunch of drones, otherwise nothing would look like it was meant to look when they sent them up there. What they did was still amazing. I mean,
yes.
It was still amazing whether they recorded it a week before or a month before. It's an awesome live event effect, and whether you call them part of the AV industry or you call them part of some other industry, and the AV industry or live events industry can utilize them to create an experience that's frankly awesome. Mostly to the people who are watching on TV, because apparently everybody who was shivering in the cold didn't actually see it go up. But either way, what they did was pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
And I can't deny that at all. And to me, drones are a tool in the chest. You're not going to use them for everything, and they're going to have their time and place. And some people will try to force that square peg into a round hole, and they'll have a drone disaster, and it won't work out. And there's a lot still to be worked out. But people who are able to do what they did are very creative professionals, and we'd love to have people like that engaging our industry. And it doesn't mean that you as a company like an integration company suddenly needs to have a drone staff or anything like that. But it's always good to know what technology is available and what effect it can create, and then just know the people and say, listen, these guys really know what they're doing, and this might be an awesome effect for this event.
Jeremy, as an integrator, I look at this the same way I look at projection mapping. Here in St. Louis, we've got the St. Louis Blues. In Peoria, where Jeremy is, they've got the Rivermen, where you can take the ice and do some really wicked things. At ISC, there was the World Championship of Projection Mapping on the Eye Museum, where this is visual, but it's still these are folks that are in the AV industry that are creating some incredible visuals. Is that where to Brad's point, where it's not something you're going to use every day, but on occasion when you have a unique installation where you're like, what we can do here, we can bring in some drone guys.
Okay, so there's different ways to approach that, and I think that it's different than projection mapping, right? Because projection mapping, you can bring an experience, but it's still an installation, if you will. It could be there for a long period of time, right? Or I look at drones as being live events, right? Maybe that's just my view of looking at it, is I don't see it ever being anything other than live events. I don't, see that there could be a permanent installation for an integration company, if you will. Now, my company, we don't do any kind of live stuff, so I don't necessarily see the need for that. I'm also terrified of drones. I owned one once. 5 minutes in, I crashed the thing into a million pieces, right? So I'm not the one be leading this company in the terms of drones. I'd have to hire a whole staff if we were involved doing that, right? But they're cool. I'm not going to say anything bad about that. I mean, that whole sequence was awesome. I mean, I had no idea you could even do some of the stuff that they like that, right? It does create an awesome experience, but I don't know. I just don't see it as an installation thing, as you will. At least the way that we're talking about it now. Whether or not there's a use case or something that could come up down the road, I'm not going to say that that's not the case either. Right?
All right, Chris, this is not the first time that we've used drones in live staging and events. So what are the pluses and what are the drawbacks of using them?
The drones are falling from the sky is the number one. Oh boy, what are you going to do? They're uncontrollable. I mean, it's not. I mean, yes, you control them.
Controlled.
They are controlled, but a gust, a glitch. We're not talking about animatronics on animatronics on a Disney ride that are not going to drop in front of a 5-year-old. You're talking about something that's floating in the air, right? That's kind of relying on mechanics to keep up there. Listen, I've given them the opportunity to become more AV thing. I've sat and waited. Please.
Is this not more AV or not?
Yes, this is AV, but so is choreography. So is choreography with 2 flashlights in their hands. What are you gonna? Come on, Tim. This is in the air using a device. I get it. But here is the thing: you have some serious safety challenges met by this. You also have the FAA regulating this now as well. I don't think anything else in AV is regulated by the FAA. Last I checked. You don't need a pilot license to operate a boom, which I honestly believe that's where the drones have a purpose. They have a purpose in the broadcast world to replace those jigs. They have obviously if you want to do a show 1,500 feet in the air using lights, there's your choice. I think you can accomplish things really cool with projector mapping with a AV, installed design. But one of the things that I noticed, and I'm sure, you can Google it, you can search the Twitters and find, but here's a downhill skier in South Korea, and then all of the sudden, oh my goodness, there crashed the drone right behind him. I mean, literally, and this wasn't a small drone. This is one of those big broadcast ones. These are like the 6 propeller units. The things look like can be mistaken for a UFO, crash right behind it. What's wrong with the way NFL does it with the camera?
With the X cam.
No,
hang on.
Safe.
You can't put an X cam over an entire slalom.
No, go see. Okay, you can't, but you can use multiple of those, and they use the X cam type stuff when they're doing the half pipes. So hey,
what happens if a long jumper hits the cabling?
We're not talking long jump, dude. You can jump over it. That'd be kind of cool. Hey, somebody's got to be the voice of reason here.
I don't think you're being very reasonable.
We want to have the drones, but hey, man, I'm taking a little bit of umbrage that it's not complete AV. Live events, absolutely. Spectacle.
How about taking a drone and putting a small projector on it and creating projection mapping with drones? Then
you do that, I'm on your side.
And that's great because everything that Chris says is legit. I mean, it's
no,
really
it's not.
Don't encourage him. Tell him.
Don't encourage him.
It's really less about the technology. I mean, to me, the fact that they were drones and all that stuff is interesting. But the most fascinating thing is that a group of people sat in a room and said, "What can I do with a technology like this?" It's like the first person who projected on a waterfall or something like that. It's the fact that really creative, smart people take technology, brushes, if you will, and push the boundaries into a really awesome thing. It's more the creative process than the technology itself.
Brad, I couldn't agree with you 100%. That's absolutely right. Somebody actually sat there and thought of, how am I going to do something different? And the drones idea came up. I think that's awesome. Yeah. And one little thing that we need to add to that, we work in the industry where lip syncing has been part of our world. Whether it's broadcast, whether it's Saturday Night Live with people talking about
How did
stuff,
we
things
get
get
to lip
pre-recorded
syncing?
ahead of time just to avoid this sort of stuff. So yes, there you go. That's where drones were AV.
That's going to be a good place to stop because I have no idea how on earth we got to lip syncing. All right.
Karaoke.
Mr. Chris Netto, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
How can people find you and or Barco?
You can find me on the Twitters at Chris_Netto. You can find Barco at www.barco.com and at Barco if you'd like as well.
All right, very good. Mr. Caldera, sir, thank you so much.
Anytime. Glad to be here.
And how can people find you and or IAS?
IAStechnology.net or IAS Technology on Facebook. And my Twitter is Jeremy_Caldera.
Yeah, and if you get your CTS, you'll also find Jeremy at the bottom of your CTS. He's the guy who signs it.
CTS, I will sign your certificate for you.
Yeah, actually, I have to get mine renewed. Also with this is Mr. Brad Grimes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. It was great.
And how do people find you and or Avixa?
Well, Avixa's at avixa.org, and they tweet at Avixa. I tweet at bgrimesdc because I live in DC. And you can find everything you need on their site, not mine.
All right, very good. My name is Tim Albright. Don't follow me on the Twitters. I'm reading on the Blues, and that's about it right now because the Bears season was over after week 2. But go by the website if you would, please, AVNation.tv. AVNation.tv, you'll find this program and a host of others. And after a furious week in Amsterdam, you'll also find all of our videos, all of our interviews from the show floor, including AVWeek that we did last week from Hall 11. Also, while you're there, check out our underwriter section. These are the folks who help us out financially, help us bring you ISC and DSC and Infocom in June and all the other ones that we have going on. So we ask you support them as well. And check out the website, avnation.tv, avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for watching. It's all the time we have for AV Week.